My sister thought I was her personal property and decided to show me who's boss. She hid my stuff, sent threats from unknown numbers, and even spied on my friends. But I caught on to her game and gave her a chance to come clean. What happened next? This is a story about just how far jealousy can go and where it led. My name's Jake. I'm 22, and let me tell you, family dinners at our place have always been, well, tense, mostly because of my sister Emily. She's 25, and she's got this whole queen of the family vibe going on. To her, family isn't just family. It's more like her personal property. And if you even think about crossing her line, you're a done for. But honestly, I never thought I'd be the one caught in her little web of possessiveness. Guess life likes a good plot twist. Emily was, let's just say, intense. Her version of family loyalty wasn't about care or support. It was more like she had a spotlight on every move I made, and it was more than just being a protective sibling. She wanted to know everything, down to who I was texting, where I was hanging out, and especially who I was hanging out with. My friends? To her, they were some kind of threat. She had this mindset that if I was going out, it should be with her or not at all. Kind of like some weird family rule book only she knew. But here's the thing. I was getting tired. I mean, who wouldn't? At some point, you just need air. I started pushing back, slipping out with friends more often, not always telling her every single detail about my day. And boy, did that set off her radar. Each time I'd step out without a full report, I'd catch that look, like I'd committed some unspeakable crime. And honestly, it just made me want to pull away even more. And it wasn't long before the tension hit the boiling point. It started with the little things, you know? Emily would make these offhand comments at dinner like, "Jake, do you even remember we're family?" Or, "Maybe if you weren't so busy with those random people, we'd actually have time to talk." All said in that sweet, sisterly tone that really just dripped with accusation. But what was I supposed to say? That I actually needed some space? Yeah, right. She'd blow up faster than a dropped Mentos in a soda bottle. So I played it cool, just brushed it off as her being her. But Emily didn't stop. Every little move I made turned into some kind of proof that I was drifting away from the family, as she'd say. It was like she needed to make me feel guilty for even wanting my own life. And the craziest part? The more I tried to keep my own boundaries, the more determined she seemed to cross them. I knew something was coming. Emily was never the type to let things slide, but I didn't know she'd take it this far. One evening, I invited my friend Max over for dinner. Just a simple, chill hangout, you know? But little did I know this would mark the end of any remaining peace in my life. The second Max walked in, Emily pounced. And I'm not talking about a friendly, "Hey, nice to meet you" kind of vibe. No, she was firing questions at him like he was applying for a top-secret government job. She wanted to know everything, how often we hung out, what we did, and even who else I spent time with. Poor Max looked like a deer in headlights. He tried to keep it cool, answering her questions as best as he could, but you could see he was getting seriously weirded out. And honestly, so was I. Her friendly smile? Yeah, it was hiding something else entirely. There was this strange vibe, like she was smiling, but her eyes were saying, "Why are you stealing my brother?" I sat there, feeling awkward as ever, hoping she'd drop it and let the evening play out normally. But of course, that didn't happen. She just kept up her questioning, pushing for details until it was painfully obvious. She wasn't curious. She was jealous. And the worst part? I hadn't even realized it until right then. When Max finally left, I was ready to just brush it off, maybe laugh about it later. But the second the door closed, Emily exploded. She went from 0 to 100 in a split second, calling me out for betraying her, claiming she thought we were close, and here I was, trading her for a complete stranger. I mean, come on. It's not like Max was some random guy off the street. He's been my friend for ages, but to her, he might as well have been the enemy. I tried explaining that, yeah, we had different friends and different interests, but that didn't make our bond any weaker. She wouldn't hear a word of it. Every sentence I tried to get out, she'd interrupt with more accusations about how I'd changed and didn't care about her or the family. The whole time, I was just standing there, wondering how we even got to this point. I mean, We're siblings, not a couple. Emily didn't cool off. Nope, she went full-on detective mode. The next few weeks were, well, creepy. Out of nowhere, she'd start accidentally calling me while I was out with friends. And it wasn't just a random butt dial thing. No, she'd actually hang on the line just long enough for me to pick up, say hello, and then she'd hang up. It was like she wanted me to know she was listening. And then, as if that wasn't weird enough, she'd start showing up at places I went with my friends. My favorite cafe? She was there. Movie night? Boom! Emily magically appears. Each time she'd act all surprised. Like, "Oh, Jake, what are you doing here?" Real casual, like she didn't just follow me halfway across town. When I finally called her out, she just laughed it off, saying it was all coincidence. But I knew her too well. Emily wasn't one for coincidences. She was all about control. Then one day, I got a message from her. I opened it up, and there's a picture of me and my friends from that afternoon, sitting at a cafe. Underneath, she typed, "You betrayed our family, Jake. It hurts that you would do this." I sat there, staring at my phone, just stunned. Was she serious? The level of obsession she was showing wasn't just weird. It was downright scary. It was like every line we'd had as siblings just got wiped out. I tried talking to her, tried explaining that she was crossing a line, that she was acting like, well, like she was trying to control every single part of my life, but she wouldn't listen. To her, this was about loyalty, about family. And in her mind, I'd already chosen my side. One morning, I woke up and instantly knew something was off. My keys, my ID, even my my phone. They were gone. And dude, I'm not the type to just lose things. First thought, I'd been robbed. But the front door was locked, and no one else had been inside. Then it hit me. Emily. Who else would even think to mess with me like this? I was fuming, but I didn't have proof. So I decided it was time for a little face-to-face with the Queen of Chaos herself. When I showed up at her place, she answered the door with this perfectly innocent smile. I could see right through it, though. I asked if she knew anything about my missing stuff. Emily just gave me this wide-eyed, fake surprised look and said, "Oh, Jake, I have no idea what you're talking about." Her tone was sweet as sugar, but her eyes? Ice cold. She went on, claiming I must have misplaced my own things, acting like I was the one losing my mind. Her words were so calm, so smooth, that for a second I almost thought I had imagined it. But no, this was her way of trying to mess with me, of making me question myself. Then, as if she hadn't already made her point, she leaned in just a little, lowered her voice, and said, "Maybe you should be more careful about who you trust as a friend." That line hit like a slap. She knew exactly what she was doing, planting that little seed of doubt, making me second-guess everyone else in my life. A few days later, my phone started blowing up with messages from unknown numbers. Each one was creepier than the last. These people, whoever they were, claimed I owed them money, big time. And they weren't being friendly about it. Every message was loaded with threats, telling me I'd better pay up or else. At first, I figured it had to be some scam, but then it clicked. This had Emily written all over it. She wanted to make me feel cornered, isolated. If I felt like I was under attack, maybe I'd start pushing my friends away, isolating myself. Classic Emily move. Control through fear. Then came the final straw. I got a message with a photo of my friend Max. It was taken from behind, like someone had been following him. Underneath, the text read, "Friends to the end, right?" That was it. Emily had crossed every line possible. She wasn't just messing with me anymore. She was dragging in people I cared about to make her twisted point. I'd had enough. I couldn't just sit back and let Emily keep messing with my life. So I decided it was time for one last conversation. I showed up at her place, tried to keep things calm, but the second I brought up her games, she burst out laughing. And not just a regular laugh, more like that smug, "you'll never beat me" kind of laugh. She looked right at me, that grin on her face, and said, "You brought this on yourself, Jake. You pushed me away, remember? I don't see why I shouldn't show you what happens when you ruin a bond as special as ours." Her words were ice cold, like she genuinely believed she had the right to control every part of my life just because we were family. That's when it hit me. Emily wouldn't stop until she felt like she'd won. But if she thought I'd just roll over and let her play her game, she had another thing coming. I knew I needed proof. Proof of all the psychological games, the threats, the fake messages, everything. So I started collecting screenshots. Every creepy message, every strange coincidence where she'd just happened to show up. Then I looped in my friends. When I told them what was going on, they were just as shocked as I was. But they had my back. Together we came up with a plan. If Emily wanted to play dirty, we'd give her a taste of her own medicine. But this time, I'd make sure there was no way she could deny it. Max, my friend who'd been dragged into this mess, was on board with the plan. He agreed to meet up with Emily for a friendly chat, and meanwhile, I was hiding nearby with a couple of other friends, recording everything. Emily had no clue what was coming. She thought she still had control, that her little game was working perfectly. But this time, we were calling the shots. As soon as she sat down with Max, she started her usual routine. Little digs, subtle threats. And then right there, she let it all slip. She practically bragged about the messages she'd sent me, about the scare tactics, and every manipulation she'd pulled. It was like she couldn't resist showing off her twisted little plan. Every word was caught on camera. I could hardly believe she'd confessed so openly. When Max finally wrapped up the friendly chat, we met her outside, video in hand. The moment I hit play and she heard her own voice spelling out every one of her tricks, the look on her face was priceless. Shock, then anger, and finally this realization that she was cornered. She knew the game was over. I gave her one last chance to own up, to maybe apologize. But she just gave me this bitter little smirk, muttered something under her breath, and walked off, slamming the door behind her. It was finally done. She'd lost. After everything went down, I cut all ties with Emily, changed my number, even moved to a new place just to make sure I'd be out of her orbit. She'd lost her grip, and without her little games and tricks, she had nothing left to hold over me. She tried to go through our parents, probably hoping they'd help her rebuild the family bond or whatever, but they were done with her too. Once they saw the evidence, even they couldn't defend her. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. No more second-guessing every message, no more looking over my shoulder expecting some weird surprise she'd cooked up. But here's the thing. The whole ordeal taught me something I'll never forget. Sometimes the people closest to you can take things way too far, all in the name of love or family. Manipulation can come from anywhere, even the ones you trust most. Now, I keep my guard up. I've learned to trust my gut and not ignore the red flags, even when it's family.